After all of humanity is wiped off the face of the Earth, Milo Rodrigues records his last moments with the help of a drone, which has been sent to record his last words. The man is an astrophysicist and reveals that he is the last human on his planet. So he asks a favor of the beings who watch the footage and says that his species doesn't deserve to be forgotten. About 100 years earlier, in 2016, humanity was facing major problems of inequality, wars and pollution. At the time, Milo was just a child and lived in New York with his mother. Unlike the boy who lives in the big city, Ricky is a country young man who works as a farmer. One day, an alien ship begins to hover over the Earth and is spotted by people from several countries at the same time. On that day, strange phenomena begin to occur. Among them is the appearance of people who have already perished, who go to meet their loved ones to deliver a message. However, it doesn't take long for the living to realize that this is just a vision. The truth is that Karelin, a visitor from another planet, is using those bodies to present himself to humans in a physical form that looks familiar to them. Through them, the alien tells that his species traveled to Earth with the aim of helping humanity get rid of countless problems, such as war, hunger and inequality. 5 years ago, Ricky lost his fiancée, who was also the woman he loved most in life. Therefore, Karelin communicates through her to inform him that all suffering and injustice will end, leaving only happiness and security. Finally, the alien claims to be just a spokesman who has been sent to announce the arrival of humanity's golden age. After receiving the first extraterrestrial contact, the media decides to refer to them as the overlords and, after sending the message, the deceased loved ones disappear. Thanks to this first contact, enemy nations decide to stop the war and celebrate together the fulfillment of the prophecy that the Earth will be restored. That afternoon, Ellie arrives at the farm and asks her boyfriend who he saw, but Ricky decides to lie and claims to have received the message from Karelin through his father, who is also deceased. Hours later, some residents of the town of Hapstead hold a meeting with the mayor and the local sheriff to discuss the measures that will be taken from now on. When he realizes that his colleagues are worried about what will happen in the future, Ricky tries to reassure them and says that if the aliens were planning to invade the planet, they wouldn't have taken care to ensure that the humans felt comfortable with their presence. However, that night, the man notices some strange phenomena happening in his house and suddenly the whole property begins to shake. During the earthquake, the couple and their dog hide in the basement and suddenly a strong blue light invades the house. When the door to the hideout is destroyed, Ricky decides to go out to see what's going on and is hit by the beam of light. Then he sees his wooden house being completely dismantled, as if it were made of Lego pieces. As the wooden planks float by, the man spots an alien ship approaching and realizes that he is being summoned for a meeting. As soon as he accepts the invitation, the whole house is rebuilt in seconds before his eyes and Ricky enters the ship. At that moment, the environment changes and the man is transported to the hotel room he and Annabelle used to frequent when they went to New York. Suddenly, Ricky hears Karelin's voice and the alien reveals that he has been chosen to be a messenger and act as a channel between the overlords and Earth. At first, the human refuses the invitation and is upset at being sent back to that room, so Karelin decides to give him a present and says he believes Ricky will make the right choice. The next day, Ellie informs the authorities about her boyfriend's abduction and numerous reporters show up to film the spaceship that has been hovering over the farm since the night before. That afternoon, the spaceship lands again and Ricky is released. As soon as the spaceship leaves, the man shows his girlfriend the present he has received and reveals that he doesn't know what the object is for. Within minutes, a group of CIA agents arrive at the farm and, when they discover that Ricky has received a bottle as a gift, one of the agents threatens him to force him to hand it over. Knowing that he could be eliminated at any moment, the farmer decides to give in to his demands, but not before opening that bottle. At this time, thousands of patients from all over the world are cured of their illnesses and Ricky ends up being invited to work with the government. The job is to gather as much information as possible about Karelin and pass it on to the authorities so that humanity can find out what the overlords are planning to do. That same day, Ricky is invited to a press conference and tells about his abduction experience. He reveals that, despite hearing the alien's voice, Karelin didn't allow him to see his true appearance. When asked what the inside of the ship looked like, Ricky let slip that it resembled a suite at the Four Seasons Hotel. When she hears this, Ellie soon realizes that her boyfriend lied about the person who appeared to him on the day the aliens arrived on Earth. Over the next few weeks, Ricky visits Karelin's ship quite often and, as they talk about the future of humanity, the two become increasingly close. During one of the conversations, Ricky asks Karelin to reveal his appearance to the world, but the alien says that humans wouldn't accept his appearance. In one of his speeches, the spokesman reveals that the overlords want all the planet's resources to be redistributed to end hunger and misery, so Ricky suggests that the Navy ships, which are now useless, be used to transport food to the poorest countries. 6 months later, the planet's inequality levels drop dramatically and Milo wins a scholarship to study at one of the best schools in New York thanks to the studies on the overlords he has been developing over the last few months. By now, Ricky is impatient to know what Karelin looks like and tries to snoop behind the mirror, as he knows that's where his friend is hiding, but the alien runs away so that the man can't see him. One night, Milo sees his mother arguing with a seller of illegal substances and he hits her with his gun. Seeing Bridget being wounded, the young man becomes furious and begins to provoke the criminal, who ends up shooting him. Immediately, a beam of blue light appears from the sky and the criminal begins to suffer an attack while Bridget cries, hugging the body of her son. Just then, they are both hit by the same beam of light and Milo is brought back. As well as being cured of the bullet wound, the boy is able to walk normally again and no longer needs his wheelchair. With the arrival of the overlords, science and faith were abandoned by a large part of the population and Peretta Jones was invited to give an interview on the subject. The young woman is a Christian and recently lost her mother. According to her, her mother was a very devout woman and decided to end her life after the aliens arrived because she refused to live in a world without the presence of God. Many other people also share this thinking, and humanity is increasingly divided on whether it is for or against the overlords. One night, after having an argument with his girlfriend about the future of their relationship, Ricky is captured by a group of rebels and taken to meet Hugo. The journalist claims to have joined a group of pacifists fighting the alien invasion and invites Ricky to join their group, called the Freedom League. However, the man refuses, so Hugo orders his allies to eliminate him. Then, just as Ricky was about to be shot, Karelin slows down time and manages to get him out. After going through the door, the man is transported back to his farm and meets Ellie. The next day, when he enters the ship, Karelin tells him that Ricky's work is finished and thanks him for all the conversations they had. Before saying goodbye, Ricky manages to take a photo of the creature hiding behind the mirror and shares the image with Ellie. At this point, the couple understand why Karelin hides his true form, because the humans would never accept him looking like that. After advising his girlfriend to delete that photo, Ricky decides to ask her to marry him and the young man is excited to start a new life with her. 15 years passed and, after graduating from MIT, Milo got a job in astrophysics. Even though all these years have passed, the adults and the elderly have not grown old, because they have gained youth as a gift from the overlords. Now, finally, humanity's wait is over, as Karelin has returned to reveal his true appearance to the world. After arriving at his ship, he selects 2 children to be the first to meet him and then appears hand in hand with them in front of the audience. When they see him, the humans are terrified, because the alien is the perfect description of what on Earth is called a demon. Its red skin, its wings and the pair of horns on its head cause real astonishment, but all this was already expected by him. 4 years after this revelation, the world is still at peace, with no inequality, no crime and no war. With the help of the aliens, humans have built sources of clean, renewable energy and enough food to feed everyone on the planet. Although perishment is still an inherent fact of life, all illnesses and diseases have been eradicated. People are living longer and healthier lives, and the birth rate is increasing all the time. For those who still feel attached to the past, there is New Athens, an island created to be as similar as possible to the world before Karelin's arrival. However, the rest of humanity lives in a complete utopia and this makes Milo very worried, because he knows that a perfect life cannot be sustained for long. One night, Ricky receives a visit from Karelin and reveals that Ellie has been trying to get pregnant for a few years, but they still haven't managed to start a family. He then asks the reason for the visit and the alien reveals that he went there to apologize. After a brief conversation, Karelin leaves and Ricky goes to meet his wife, but doesn't reveal what they've just talked about. The next day, Dr. Boyce, CEO of the research center where Milo works, is informed about a door that has mysteriously appeared in his building. When he opens it, he finds a secret room with a single board in the center. It doesn't take long for the scientist to realize that this is a communication mechanism and he begins to wonder how to use it. That night, the beam of light from Karelin's ship invades the Gregson family home and, as she sleeps, Amy's body is covered in blue light. When she wakes up, the woman sees her husband and tells him that their son, Tommy, is in danger. Jake immediately goes out to look for the young man and finds him in the barn. As he approaches to take him back home, the man ends up being thrown away and realizes that his son has gained telekinesis powers. The next morning, while trying to explain to his wife what has happened, Jake reveals that he is worried, but Amy refuses to believe that there is anything wrong with Tommy. Even so, she agrees to call in a therapist to talk to the boy. Upon arriving at the Gregson family home, Peretta Jones, who is now an adult woman, tries to extract information from Tommy and discovers that he travels to other worlds in his sleep. According to the young man, the overlords take him to visit places full of fire all over the ground and smoke covering the air. During the conversation, Tommy starts to hear a child crying and panics because he can't stop the noise. Desperate, the young man runs into the kitchen to find his parents. Then suddenly the crying stops and he says that his mother is pregnant. Frightened by what she saw, as soon as the young man calms down, Peretta leaves the house and Jake begins to feel afraid of his own son. That day, Ricky prepares a special lunch for his wife and decides to reveal what Karelin said on his last visit. But before the farmer could speak, his veins began to pop out of his arm and he fell to the ground. When he arrives at the hospital, Ricky discovers that he has a degenerative disease that is causing his organs to fail. When the doctor leaves the room, Ricky tells his wife that there was something in the material from the ship that poisoned him and, most likely, that's the reason he's ill. During a conversation with Rachel, his co-worker, Milo reveals that he has a theory as to why Karelin looks like the exact representation of the devil. According to him, that alien race had been to Earth before and, somehow, humans were waiting for them to return. The scientist believes that there is some kind of psychic connection between the two species, but over the years, humans have begun to portray these extraterrestrials as the personification of evil. 4 months later, Amy discovers that she is pregnant with a baby girl and decides to call her Jennifer, exactly the same name that Tommy told his father while they were playing in the yard. In recent months, Boyce has discovered how to use the board to communicate with Karelin and asks one of his employees to find a way to bring the Gregson family to him. When he arrives at the family estate, Morton introduces himself and invites Jake to South Africa for a job interview, as he has a degree in design. When he finds out that he can take his whole family on this trip, Jake decides to accept the invitation, as he is bored with his quiet life. Since Ricky fell ill, many people have started camping around his farm to offer support. Among them is Peretta, and it's not long before the therapist and Ellie become friends. That night, when they arrive in South Africa, Jake and his family are invited to a party and Boyce welcomes them with excitement. After asking Morton to take Tommy to see the animal showroom, Boyce takes the liberty of introducing Amy to the property and Jake is left alone at the party. Minutes later, he meets Milo and finds out that Boyce isn't hiring. The truth is that the research center will soon close its doors. Upon hearing this, Jake begins to wonder why all those people are gathered there and sets off to find his wife. After discovering the truth, the couple decide to leave and Jake goes off to look for his son. Just then, Karelin appears and informs them that he is building a zoo on his planet, where he will house terrestrial animals of all species for display. Seeing the alien, Milo takes the opportunity to ask a few questions, but Karelin answers him evasively. After the speech, Boyce approaches Amy and says that the Overlord would like to talk to her in private. He then leads her into the secret room and Karelin asks the woman to place her hand on the board. At that moment, the alien manages to communicate with the baby Amy is carrying and suddenly a huge beam of light begins to emit a signal into the sky. While everyone is watching that light, Amy's hand is glued to the table and involuntarily moves from one side of the board to the other. At that moment, Tommy runs up to the roof in an attempt to get closer to the beam and is followed by his father, who sees him falling from above. However, when he gets closer, Jake discovers that the young man is still alive, having used his powers of telekinesis to prevent his body from touching the ground. At the end of the process, Karelin says that his mission is almost complete, as he has contacted Jennifer and she has accepted her fate. During the process, Milo looked closely at the beam of light used to establish a connection between two planets and realized that there were some symbols drawn on it. After writing them down, the man notices that the drawing forms a constellation and asks Rachel to help him start his research. After picking up his wife and son, Jake walks to the airstrip and gets into a helicopter to return home. The next morning, after working all night, Milo finally manages to find the location of the Overlord's planet and Rachel kisses him. That day, Ricky receives another visit from his alien friend and is given a new gift that can be used to cure him of his illness. Just then, Ellie enters the barn and is happy to see him, but the meeting is interrupted by Peretta's arrival. The woman then confronts him and Karelin assumes that it was he who made Ricky unable to have a child in order to spare him the pain that will be caused by what will happen in the near future. During the conversation, Peretta steals the farmer's gun and shoots the alien. Seeing his friend about to lose his life, Ricky uses the gift he received to save him and Peretta has her faith shaken by the words of Karelin, who says that the fate of humanity cannot be changed, regardless of whether he is alive or not. That night, when she gets home, Peretta has a vision of her deceased mother and decides to join her, jumping from the terrace of the building where she lives. Months later, Amy gives birth to a beautiful baby girl and the sparkle that radiates from her eyes proves that this baby is very special. 4 years after Jennifer's birth, Milo begins to notice the presence of anomalies in children all over the world. During this time, Ricky's degenerative disease worsened and he is only alive thanks to the technological advances that have taken place in the field of medicine. Once again, during the night, the man receives a visit from Karelin and the alien reveals that the final stage has begun. Before telling him what will happen to that world, Karelin says that his species is not the author of that plan. They are just facilitators in the process of humanity's evolution. One afternoon, children from different countries start behaving strangely. After raising their hands to the sky, they begin to pronounce Jennifer's name and the adults around them don't understand what's going on. In the middle of the night, Jake sees a group of children gathering outside his house and they stay there until dawn. Frightened, the man decides to go out to look for the parents of those youngsters and discovers that there are dozens of other children standing outside the house. Worried about his family's future, Jake decides to take his wife and children and move to New Athens, where art and culture are still alive. When they get there, the Gregsons are met by Jerry Hallcross, the town's mayor, who, after taking them to see his house, makes a new home available for the family. That day, Milo calls Jake and asks to speak to Jennifer, as he believes that all the phenomena that are happening are somehow linked to the girl. When asked what she sees when she looks in the mirror, the girl says she can see everything and transmits a vision to Milo. Watching his planet being destroyed, the scientist is terrified and the mirror in front of Jennifer shatters. After discovering that Earth is in danger, Milo enlists Rachel's help to find a way to reach the planet of the overlords. However, the woman is afraid she will never see her boyfriend again if he leaves. Although he loves her, Milo knows that he has to make this sacrifice for the sake of humanity and says that, when he gets on the ship that the overlords use to transport the land animals to their planet, it will take him around 100 days to travel back and forth. The problem is that to find out how long this means for humans, they have to multiply the number of days by the speed of light, which works out at around 80 Earth years. This means that when Milo returns from his trip, Rachel and all the other people he loves will be gone. So, before leaving, the astrophysicist asks Rachel to go to the orbital and put herself into cryogenic sleep so that he can wake her up when he returns from his trip. After putting her boyfriend into a state of hibernation to make the journey, the scientist leaves the ship and Milo follows its destination. That night, Ricky begins to feel ill and decides to go out to gaze at the stars with his wife. At that moment, he says that Ellie is the person he has loved most in his life and he feels happy that he has been able to love again after losing Annabelle, because for a long time he believed that it would never happen. Then, at that moment, lying on the grass next to the woman he loves, Ricky takes his last breath and Ellie is left alone. The next day, while Jennifer is at the cinema with her family, Karelin interrupts the film to make an announcement and says that the time has come for humanity to suffer its fate. During the broadcast, children from all over the world start looking up at the sky. Then the alien says that, at the right time, all the young people living on Earth will cease to be human and no more children will be born on that planet. As for the adults, they will be able to live as they please for as long as they have left, and when they are gone, their species will cease to exist forever. As soon as Karelin finishes saying these words, children all over the world begin to be abducted and, no matter how hard their parents try to prevent their departure, the fate of those young people cannot be changed. Seeing his world collapsing, Jerry decides to install a bomb to blow up New Athens, as he feels his role as mayor has been a great failure. While Jake tries to convince him to defuse that bomb, Tommy says goodbye to his mother and tells her that it's time for him to join the other children. Just then, Amy hugs her son and has the chance to say goodbye. She then goes to meet her husband and thanks him, because thanks to him, Amy has had the chance to know love and has built a beautiful family. As soon as the couple declare their love for each other, the bomb explodes, wiping out all the residents of New Athens. 50 days later, the equivalent of 40 Earth years, Milo arrives on the planet of the overlords and meets Vindarden. Concerned, the scientist asks how his planet is doing, because he knows that the Earth is in danger. However, the alien claims that everything that happens on Earth was planned a long time ago by the Supreme Mind, known to humans as God. According to Vindarden, his species has had direct contact with the Supreme Mind for 100,000 years and does everything it commands. At that moment, Milo asks the alien to connect him with this Supreme Mind, so the scientist is taken to the beam of blue light and manages to talk to the All, the collective consciousness of that universe. Worried about the future of his species, Milo asks what will happen to humans, and the Supreme Mind reveals that the destiny of all living creatures is to evolve to the point where they are once again part of the whole. When he wakes up, Milo asks what happened to the orbital and discovers that it has been destroyed. However, Karelin managed to recover Rachel's body, but when he found her, the young woman was completely frozen. When he discovers that his girlfriend has lost her life while waiting for him, Milo refuses Carolyn's invitation to spend the rest of his life with the overlords and decides to live out his last moments on his home planet. When he arrives on Earth, more than 80 years have passed since his departure, and Milo discovers that he is the last living being of his species. At that moment, he uses a drone to communicate with the overlords and realizes that Jennifer is using her power to extract energy from the planet. Seeing the Earth's crust beginning to crack, Milo realizes that his vision is about to come true and kneels down to wait for the planet to explode. In his final minutes, the scientist asks Carolyn to keep something of his culture so that humanity's existence is not forgotten. Then the alien records Milo's favorite song and the entire Earth is destroyed in an explosion. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.